for a conversation on the global perspective of improving the web. Please welcome Audrey Tang and Baroness Joanna Shields in a conversation moderated by Zia Khan.
Great, thank you very much. And I want to extend a big thanks to Micah, to you and Frank and the whole Project Liberty team for pulling together this critical conversation at such a critical time. I'm Zia Khan and I'm joined by two wonderful experts, Audrey Tang and Joanna Shields. And our goal when we look at this question around the open internet and open systems is to zoom out and bring a global perspective and bring some global ideas into this conversation as well. So I would just like to start by putting forth a question for both of you. As you take a look at where we are when it comes to the internet, the progress, and recent trends, what do you see as the scene, and what are some trends that give you some concern and some trends that are giving you hope right now? Maybe Audrey, we could start with you.
Sure. I think 10 years ago, in 2014, the Taiwan's polarization was at a very high level. And the trust from citizens to our democratic government was at 9%, not very high. Like with 23 million people, anything the government says, 20 million people automatically said no. And Taiwan was not the only one in that. We have the Arab Spring around the same time, and people do see that what's called social media, the broadcasting part of social media, turns something that is built upon our social fabric, but just kind of strip mines it, so that everybody is in a different feed, a different world, and it fuels polarization and gives voice to the most polarized voice. So, of course, a lot of society is just polarized. What gives me hope is that the kind of antidote that we have built in Taiwan to the bridge-making systems, the consensus-making systems that turned the 9% of trust over 6 years to more than 70% of trust is now being widely adopted as open source technologies. I'm not just talking about community nodes or the super nodes on X.com or YouTube, but rather entire like broad listening systems that people are deploying in Tokyo, in Helsinki as we speak, to mend the society and depolarize the society, and that gives me hope.
Well, starting first with polarization, the most advanced AI systems in the world today are the recommendation engines on social media networks. And we've seen over time our free will and human agency being removed from the process of the apps and the platforms that we use. So every time we interact with these systems, we're told what to think, what to feel, how to react, and we're meant to, they're trying to obviously optimize for this attention economy and keep you engaged longer. But you know, the byproduct, of course, is the fact that we're driven into dark spaces where we don't hear other opinions because the algorithm thinks we want to hear more and more of that opinion that maybe was provocative and got us interested in the first place. But what has me really optimistic is the business model for AI companies, the AI foundation models, is different. It's a subscription model. And if you are lucky enough to be one of the first people who is using the AI search enabled by ChatGPT, because it's only on a trial basis now, you'll realize the experience is exactly what is meant to be on the web. It is the first time in 15 years where you're navigating the world's information ecosystem with your own free will and your own mind as a guide. And I think that is such an exciting and positive development. And I think that if I could raise the awareness with this group and all the people here working towards this better internet for all, I think is to recognize that the business model is at the heart of a lot of the fundamental harms and crimes that we worry about every day. And if we can preserve a subscription model to fuel this next generation of applications in AI, we can prevent a lot of the harms that we are here to talk about today. So I encourage you to try it, and you'll really feel like for the first time you're actually accessing all the world's information based on your own decisions and your own navigation through that, which is really exciting.
Joanna, that makes me think, I think the three words that are so powerful that this summit is organized around are in terms of choice, voice, and stake. And we often think about technology as just developing according to some inexorable path, that there's just a physics to how technology develops. But we have more choices, we can include more voices, and we can expand the stakes that people have. And you're pointing to AI as something that can help shift and sort of broaden our perspectives. Given your global perspectives, as you think about AI or other things that are on the cusp of the innovation frontier, what are some things that you're seeing that could help us change from the path that we seem to have been on?
Me first?
Go ahead.
So, I flew in just this morning from San Francisco. Yesterday, there was a convening about AI safety institutions around the world and the conversations about how to maintain trust and safety in the world of AI. And I hear very encouraging things in that people are now really taking seriously the harm that AI creates, deepfakes, scams, and things like that. And then there's a lot of very concerted efforts to share, to pull together as open source tools, the tools that will enable us to detect such problems created by AI, for even very small or decentralized or open source operators to easily filter out such harms caused by AI. And also a way to tune an AI, like in Taiwan, we asked like 200,000 people randomly, we sent them SMS text and asked them what to do with these deepfakes online. And they co-created laws and regulations that really put liability on social media and so on. But as a kind of byproduct of that, they also, in different cities like Taipei and Tainan, specified how they want AI to behave in specific social roles, like in a facilitator's role, in public sector's role, as a companion to elderly people, and so on. And nowadays, there's this trend called pluralistic alignment, where the nation can have this baseline expectation of AI's roles, each communities can have a baseline expectation, and each deployment site have another expectation. And the good thing about the current generation of AI is that you don't have to program any line of code. You just have a normal conversation like Citizens Assembly. And at the end of that, you just feed the recording of the Citizens Assembly, and then AI just aligns itself to the nested expectation of your community. And that really gives me hope.
I would agree. The fact that all the AI safety institutes got together this week in San Francisco and are cooperating in terms of, it is impossible for any one government to be able to do the level of testing required on each, country by country. So pooling resources and deciding, who's doing what and supporting each other, I think is really important in terms of ensuring, equitable models are developed and transparency and things are done in the right way. The one thing that does concern me as we move into this new sort of AI-enabled internet phase is, again, we have not solved for an age signal, universal age signal for kids. And I don't know if you guys saw today that Australia is debating a law whereby social media would be banned for anybody under 16. Now, that might sound in a free society like an absolute extreme position, but if you think about it from the position of a chief executive of a country, you have a problem where you need to protect citizens, and the platform companies are not leaning in and not being forthcoming enough, so they cannot ensure the protection of citizens from harm. And as we move into this AI-enabled world, we're starting to see AI-enabled crimes online, from sextortion to, nudify sites that are, really destroying the lives of young people and creating enormous challenges. We just had the case of the young boy in Florida who fell in love with an AI chatbot, and the AI lost its way and basically advised, based on what we know, that young person, said it was all right to commit suicide or acknowledged that he wanted to be together with that person. And that is incredibly scary. And I think that the age signal is something that we have to solve for. There is there's no world where a 13-year-old should be able to enact with or engage with a character online when they're not quite sure the difference between reality and fiction, and they're not old enough or mature enough to recognize when something is interfering with that. And I think we really have to get our arms around that.
It's interesting. I find across so many issues, climate change, technology, even nutrition, kids are popping up more and more as something that we can all agree on, that we have to think about the future generations and build for the future generations. And you were highlighting, some of the issues around kid safety. And you mentioned the story in Australia around a regulation of like, well, let's just stop. And I feel that, innovation and regulations sometimes fall in tension, yet sometimes regulations can unleash innovation as well, as we saw with food safety 100 years ago, how it unlocked a whole market around food and enabled that. I'm curious around whether we stay with kids or some other harm. Where do you see the opportunity for how regulations or how we rethink the market can unleash innovation versus being assumed to being an impediment to innovation?
Internationally interoperable way to give signals around not just age, but also, for example, I want to disclose that I'm over 18 years old, but I don't want to disclose my birthday. That is a very reasonable expectation. But currently, in many jurisdictions, there's just a trade-off between two extremes. You either have this real ID thing where everything about you is known by the operator, or you become completely anonymous and therefore exposed to all sorts of different harms. And so in Taiwan, we consider the public infrastructure around this kind of dial a public good. So we allocated CapEx money to build such what we call DID wallet for decentralized ID wallets, meaning that people can prove anything about themselves with their kind of considered range and then not proving anything more. Then that is called selective disclosure. And it's not just Taiwan, right? Australia is now testing interoperability. There's Buenos Aires with Quark ID and so on. So more and more people are building on this kind of technologies that allow us to disclose just part of our identity or our community or age of consent on the internet. So the great hope here is to think of it as kind of public infrastructure level thing with the sustained funding and investment and so on, so that the application built upon this common operating system internationally can just work instead of having to get 70 different certifications.
I agree completely. We have to solve for this, way in which we can ascertain who is approaching that service and what type of service they should provide, so that it complies with global regulations. Because we can't carry on, doing what we're doing. We've got a situation where, these new applications, the AI companies have been actually more forthcoming than the platform companies because they're not protected by Section 230 of the Communications Decency Act, or at least they don't think they are. So they have built guardrails into their systems, and they are being much more responsive. But it would be much easier if we could solve for these universal signals with some kind of digital wallet or identity, so that as a provider of a service, you're opening up those possibilities. And you're not restricting people because you can deliver what is legal and acceptable in that particular culture, in that particular country, at that person's age, or whatever their characteristics are.
And when you think about some of these issues, which sound to me like almost coordination issues as well, and when you think about it from a global perspective, what is the avenue by which we can achieve this global coordination or global regulation? Because right now things are so dominated by a small part of the world, and you mentioned Section 230, which is a U.S. Regulation that has global impact. How will we get to global coordination and building out this global infrastructure that is a better internet for everyone?
Yeah. So on a kind of diplomacy level, the AI Safety Institute networks is a kind of technology first avenue, where any proof of concept that works in a country can be surfaced very quickly so that the other countries don't have to reinvent the wheel. And then the de facto standardization by the leading AI companies, as well as the open source AI efforts and so on, that just takes effect automatically because people can see that, oh, this really strengthens the defense. So that happens organically. I think what is also important is to hold on a international rights-based framework so that if we all agree that these are the kind of human rights that our technology need to uphold, then for the gaps that the current technologies, including Web3 and open technology, does not yet address, then we have a very clear research agenda to allocate public funding to.
I am a big believer in global multi-stakeholder initiatives around big, challenging global problems. And I founded something called the We Protect Global Alliance to protect children from online exploitation and abuse 10 years ago next month. And we see the fruits of our labor now because globally this idea of age-specific, age-appropriate design is making its way into the development community. Audrey talked about the global safety institutes coming together. I think governments in many cases faced with, many of the companies that we're talking about regulating they have higher revenue than our GDPs in the other countries. And it makes an issue of power imbalance. And, every country, every, leader has to keep their people safe. So the best way to do that often is to pool your resource and to bring together a multi-stakeholder initiative, which is why I think Project Liberty is a very important initiative, and I want it to be as global as possible in the sense that we all need to come together and align because there is a better way forward.
So maybe since both of you have been so successful in mobilizing these global alliances and networks, which I think are probably the right institutional form to draw upon given the state of our global institutions, what do you think are some key ingredients that you thought about of success that Project Liberty and this community should keep in mind as we try and fuse together an alliance and grow the alliance?
I'd like to highlight the role of voice in voice, choice, and stake. A governance mechanism is only successful and legitimate in as much as people are affected by it, have a voice in it, which is why in the AI safety discussions the past couple of days, we keep coming back to how quickly can we involve the feedback from people. Now, in human facilitated conversations, a facilitator can facilitate maybe 150 people in the same room at a maximum. But nowadays, there's a lot of research into the deliberation technologies assisted by AI, so that it's called broad listening, so the reverse of broadcasting, so that when millions and millions of people having a conversation in many different groups, AI can help to make the sense making so that we can get a feedback in real time. What are the new risks? What are the new mitigation efforts? What are the acceptable kind of overtone boundaries that people put? And in Taiwan, we've already very successfully put, for example, Facebook, TikTok, and so on a, if you want to post a advertisement featuring a celebrity, you have to get a digital signature from that celebrity. Otherwise, if somebody get conned, scammed for 1 million, then the platform will be liable for that 1 million starting January 1st. And this crowdsourced law is done using this AI sortation-based citizens assembly. So the more investment we have from Project Liberty and other international efforts to listen at scale, I think the better we have a chance to get legitimacy.
I think this is a moment in time where we can reclaim our free will and human agency as AI takes over and this new business model of subscription is the prevailing model at the moment. Let's not let it drift to be an attention economy, a surveillance economy driven model for AI. AI is very expensive to run and operate, which makes it very difficult because companies are looking for ways in which they can monetize. And having been an early Googler and then an early person at Facebook, I remember when those decisions were made, And I remember the economic pressure that came upon the companies, and they will be under that same pressure. But I think we have proven that we are willing to pay Netflix a certain subscription every month, and people are willing to pay for access to these powerful large language models. Let's make sure that we, as people, leaders in government and civil society, are looking for ways to finance for those who cannot do that, so that they have free access to all the world's information ecosystem using AI products.
And Joanna, I think that was a perfect comment with which to wrap up this session. Thank you both so much for that. Thank you very much. Thank you so much.